somewhere in the VIP section of Stade de France, someone paid close to $2,000 for a single seat. That's not unusual for a BTS show in 2026. Tickets for this tour have been selling out in minutes since April. What was unusual was who was sitting in that seat, because the man watching Jimin dance under the fireworks that night wasn't just another rich fan. It was the president of France. If you've been following this channel, you already know BTS doesn't do anything small anymore. But even by BTS standards, what happened in Paris on July 17, 2026 was something else. And if you're a Jimin stan like half the people watching this video right now, stick around, because his moment in this story is the part nobody saw coming. Before we get into that, let me give you the short version in case you're just catching this story for the first time. BTS closed out the European leg of their ARIRANG world tour with 2 nights in Paris, and on the very first night, the president of the host country was sitting in the crowd. Not backstage, not in some private box cut off from the noise. In the crowd, with the fans, holding a light stick. Now let's break down exactly how that night unfolded, because the details matter here just as much as the headline. Let's set the scene first, because context matters here. BTS had not performed in Paris in 7 years. Their last time at Stade de France was back in 2019, before the military service, before the solo careers, before the world basically forgot what it felt like to have all 7 of them on one stage at the same time. 7 years is a long time in K-pop, long enough for an entire generation of fans to grow up only knowing BTS through solo releases, Instagram lives, and old fan cams. So when the ARIRANG World Tour finally announced 2 nights in Paris as the closing shows of their European leg, French Army didn't just buy tickets. They treated it like a reunion 7 years in the making. And they showed up for it. Reports from the ground describe fans arriving at the metro station near Stade de France as early as 9 in the morning, hours before doors even opened, dressed head to toe in red and black. A not-so-subtle nod to the color scheme of BTS's newest album, ARIRANG, which dropped back in March. Sophisticated hairstyles, red star makeup at the corner of their eyes, jerseys with their bias's name printed on the back. This wasn't just a concert crowd. This was a fandom that had been waiting 7 years to prove it never left. By the time BTS reached Paris, this tour had already been building momentum across an entire continent for weeks. Madrid got the first ever BTS shows on Spanish soil in late June. Brussels followed with 2 nights that gave Belgian Army their own first-time experience with the group. London brought BTS to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the very first time, and Munich delivered BTS's first-ever performances on German soil less than a week before Paris. Every single one of those cities got a piece of history. But Paris was different, because Paris wasn't a first. Paris was a return. And there's something about a comeback to a city that already knows you that hits differently than a debut. The anticipation wasn't about discovering BTS for the first time. It was about picking up exactly where things left off 7 years ago. By 7:30 that evening, the stadium exploded. All 7 members, RM, Suga, Jin, J-Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook, sprinted onto the stage surrounded by dancers in black hoods, moving like a small army of shadows before the lights hit and the show properly began. The opening track was Hooligan, a song that opens with a violin line before sliding into a blend of rap and R&B that got the entire stadium on its feet in seconds. And somewhere in that sea of over 80,000 people, in a section most fans couldn't even see from the floor, Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte were on their feet too, caught on camera waving army bombs along with everyone else. Let that sink in for a second. The president of France, waving a light stick at a BTS concert. This wasn't a rumor, and it wasn't some blurry photo taken out of context that spiraled out of control online, which, let's be honest, happens all the time with celebrity sightings. This one was confirmed. Multiple French outlets reported on it directly, describing Macron and the First Lady as being spotted enjoying the show from the crowd, and video circulating from the night shows them clearly having a good time, right along with everyone else in that stadium. No handlers pulling them away early, no stiff photo op energy. Just 2 people at a concert, doing exactly what tens of thousands of other people around them were doing. Now, if you're new to this channel and wondering why this even matters, here's the bigger picture. BTS has crossed almost every threshold a music act can cross. Grammy nominations, UN speeches, Billboard records that used to belong exclusively to Western pop acts. But a sitting head of state showing up, unannounced, to sit in the crowd rather than backstage in some sanitized VIP box away from the noise, that's a different kind of milestone. That's the moment a cultural phenomenon stops being treated like a niche interest and starts being treated like an event powerful enough to pull in people who, on paper, have absolutely nothing to do with K-pop fandom. And if you're wondering about that ticket price I mentioned earlier, multiple reports on the two Paris shows pointed to VIP seating running in the range of €2,000. For 2 nights that together pulled in more than 160,000 fans. That's not a small side note. That's a snapshot of just how much cultural and financial weight this tour is carrying right now, in the middle of 2026, 7 years after most people assumed a full group BTS stadium tour might never happen again. Okay, now let's talk about the part you actually clicked for. Jimin. Because while Macron sitting in the crowd is the headline that made international news, what happened on that stage tells its own story, and if you followed Jimin's era since coming back from military service, this Paris show fits into a pattern that keeps repeating itself. Wherever Jimin goes, attention follows, and it's not just from ARMY anymore. A few weeks before this concert, Jimin had already made noise in Paris, literally the same city, when he showed up front row at the Dior Men's Spring-Summer 2027 show during Paris Fashion Week. He's been Dior's global ambassador since 2023, and every time he sits front row at one of their shows, the internet basically stops working for a few hours. That happened again in June, weeks before the concert, when he showed up in a dark embroidered velvet jacket, and reports at the time noted he generated hundreds of thousands of social posts within a single hour of his arrival. So by the time BTS actually landed in Paris for the concert itself, Jimin wasn't just returning as a member of BTS. He was returning to a city where he'd already built a personal relationship with the fashion world, the press, and apparently half of Twitter. And Dior clearly wanted in on the concert too. According to coverage from journalists who were physically in the stadium that night, Jimin performed in a custom Dior look designed specifically for the show by Jonathan Anderson, Dior's current creative director. Think about that for a second. A luxury fashion house didn't just dress Jimin for a red carpet or a magazine cover. They built him a custom stage outfit for a stadium show in front of 80,000 people and a sitting president. That's not typical concert merch level styling. That's brand level investment in one member of a 7-person group, which tells you everything about how the fashion industry currently views Jimin's individual pull. B wasn't left out either. Reports describe him in a custom Celine look that night, which makes sense given his own long-standing relationship with the brand. But it's worth pointing out that Jimin's Dior connection specifically has become one of the most consistent threads running through this entire era of BTS, from Fashion Week appearances to stage costuming, and Paris, a city that's essentially Dior's home turf, was the perfect place for that thread to come full circle. Musically, the middle stretch of the show is where things really opened up. Eyewitness accounts describe a confetti drop leading into a segment where dancers dressed in blue, white, red, yellow, and black fabric took over the stage, alongside performers in red and blue capes, while the members performed from a circular platform at the center of the stadium that physically rose and lowered during the performance. It's the kind of staging that photos alone can't fully capture: the movement, the scale, the way it makes a stadium show feel less like a concert and more like a live spectacle built specifically for the room. And in the middle of all of that stagecraft, this is where Jimin has built his reputation over the years as one of the most technically precise dancers in the entire industry. Fans and critics alike have referred to him as something close to the group's God of Concerts, a nickname that keeps resurfacing show after show on this tour because of exactly this kind of performance. Sharp lines, complete command of a stage that size, and the ability to make choreography look effortless even while sharing a stadium-sized circular platform that's literally moving underneath him. This isn't a new reputation built overnight for a single tour stop. It's something that's followed Jimin through every single city on this run so far. Earlier this year, a special issue dedicated to the tour singled him out specifically as the group's best dancer, a recognition that lines up with what fans have been saying for years but rarely gets acknowledged at that level outside the fandom. And it's not just about technical skill either. Part of what makes Jimin's stage presence so consistently talked about is how present he stays with the crowd itself, leaning into interactions, playing off the energy of whichever stadium he's in that night, making 80,000 people feel like they're each getting a personal moment, even from the far end of a stadium floor. That's a specific kind of stage skill that doesn't always translate to a highlight reel, but it's exactly the kind of thing that turns a single performance into something people are still talking about days later. It also helps explain why brands like Dior keep leaning into him the way they do. Ambassadorships like this usually come down to one simple question for a luxury house. Does this person actually move culture? Or do they just wear the clothes well? With Jimin, the answer has increasingly been both. His appearances at Dior shows regularly dominate social conversation during Paris Fashion Week, sometimes outpacing entire runway collections in terms of online mentions. So when a stadium tour rolls through the one city where that relationship runs deepest, it's not surprising that Dior showed up in a real way. Not with a front row seat this time, but with a custom outfit built specifically for that stage, in that city, on that night. Throughout the night, the members switched between singing in English and Korean, occasionally pausing to talk directly to the crowd. A small but meaningful detail, because it's part of what makes these European stops feel different from a typical arena show. It's not just a performance being delivered at the audience. It's a genuine back and forth in a stadium that had been waiting 7 years for the chance to have that conversation again. By the time the night ended, the setlist had pulled from both eras of BTS, deep cuts and fresh tracks off ARIRANG like Swim, Body to Body, and 2.0, stitched together with the songs that turned them into a global phenomenon in the first place, like Dynamite, Idol, and Not Today. For longtime fans, that mix is exactly the point. This tour isn't just promoting a new album. It's a celebration of everything BTS has built since debut, performed in front of a new generation of fans who are seeing some of these songs live for the very first time, and an older generation who waited 7 years to hear them again in a stadium. And somewhere in that crowd, waving a lightstick like everyone else, was the president of France. Online, the reaction split almost instantly into two camps. One half of the internet was purely focused on the surreal image of a head of state waving a BTS lightstick like any other fan in the crowd. Clips of Macron and Brigitte Macron enjoying the show circulated widely within hours, racking up hundreds of thousands of views from people who had never watched a single second of a BTS concert before in their lives. The other half, unsurprisingly, was ARMY, and their reaction wasn't really surprise at all. It was closer to validation. For a fandom that spent years defending BTS against people who dismissed the group as a passing trend, watching a sitting president show up and genuinely enjoy the show felt like one more piece of proof that the skepticism was always going to age badly. Comment sections filled up fast with fans joking that even world leaders know better than to skip a BTS comeback tour, alongside a steady stream of clips zooming in on Jimin's stage moments specifically, cut and recut across every platform within hours of the show ending. Here's the thing that makes this story worth talking about beyond just the surprise of it. Celebrity sightings at concerts happen all the time. Actors, athletes, even politicians occasionally show up somewhere and get photographed. Most of those moments are forgettable. But this one lands differently because of the timing. BTS is only a few months removed from a full 7-year gap where the group didn't exist as a complete unit. Military service pulled all 7 members away one by one. Solo careers filled the silence. And for a while, nobody knew for certain whether a full group stadium tour like this one would ever happen again. The fact that their comeback tour is now pulling in heads of state, breaking attendance records across multiple continents, and generating custom fashion collaborations from luxury houses says something about just how completely BTS re-established themselves in a single comeback era. And for Jimin specifically, Paris continues to be a city where his individual star power seems to operate on its own gravitational pull, separate from, but still connected to, the group's overall momentum. Fashion Week appearances, custom stage costuming, choreography that keeps earning him comparisons as one of the best performers currently active in the industry. Paris in July 2026 wasn't just another stop on a world tour for him. It was another data point in a pattern that's been building since he returned from military service. Everywhere he goes, attention follows, and increasingly, that attention comes from well outside the K-pop world entirely. So here's the real question worth sitting with. If a sitting president is now willing to sit in a general crowd, wave a light stick, and openly enjoy a K-pop concert on camera, what does that actually say about where this genre sits in global culture right now? Because 10 years ago, that headline would have been unthinkable. Today, it's just Tuesday for BTS. If you want to see how the story keeps evolving, because there's still a second Paris show, more legs of his tour still ahead, and Jimin's Fashion World takeover shows absolutely no signs of slowing down. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel, because we're covering every single stop of this tour as it happens. Drop a comment, and tell me what surprised you more, the ticket price, or the fact that it was Macron in that crowd. And if you haven't already, hit that like button, because it genuinely helps this channel keep bringing you this coverage as fast as it happens. Because if a president showing up unannounced to a BTS concert is where we are in July 2026, I think we can all agree, we are absolutely not ready for what's coming next on this tour.